Welcome to the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast. My name is Katie Dodd, and I'm a nutrition entrepreneur. I spent 7 years as a side hustler before diving into entrepreneurship full time. Before making the leap, I was bringing in 6 figures through my side hustle. If I can do it, you can too. This podcast is for dietitians, interns, and students who want to be inspired to start or perfect the side hustle of their dreams. Let's do this. Hello and welcome to the 229th episode of the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast, Positive Intelligence Part 1. Now, this is going to be a 3-part series all about positive intelligence. For those of you who don't know, Intelligence is a book written by Shirzad Chamine. I might be butchering his last name, but it is a really good book. And if you listen to the podcast, you know that I love reading books. And I feel like every book I read, if I'm honest, I'm like, this is the best book ever. But Positive Intelligence really was an incredible book. I'm going to tell you a little bit of the backstory about how I came into this world of positive intelligence. This episode is going to be kind of like a 101 all about positive intelligence. And then in episode 2, we're going to talk about something called saboteurs. And then in part 3, we are going to be talking about the sage, and you'll learn what that is as I talk. And, when I was thinking about the content for our next few podcast episodes, as we round out the year, for those of you who listen to the podcast live, we are in December of 2024. I thought, gosh, it would be fun to do a series. I did a series earlier in the year on affiliate income. And I thought, gosh, this might be fun to do one on a book that really means a lot to me, positive intelligence. So here we are, the next 3 weeks, we're going to be talking about all things positive intelligence. So how I discovered this book was in June of 2024 this year. I was at Smart Success Healthcare Live, an event in Clearwater, Florida, put on by my business coach. And right before that event, we had like a inner circle mastermind meeting we were doing. And one of my coaches, I think he calls him his therapist. I don't entirely know what his background is, but he came and spoke to our group, and he was talking about principles from this book, Positive Intelligence. And as he was talking, I'm like scribbling down notes. I'm like, this is so good. This is so good. And I'll kind of tell you a little bit of the reason why I'm so obsessed with positive intelligence is because I feel like I'm on this journey to figure out what is the difference between those who have success in their side hustle and their business endeavors, whatever it is they do in life, versus those who give up. And I don't say those who fail, because I really think the only true failure is giving up. I think a lot of people give up prematurely, or they just don't stick in the game long enough. And I'm always trying to figure out what is it that makes up the difference between those two people, and how can we help people to achieve their dreams? How can we help people to stay in the game, even when the game is really hard? And so this is just something I've been searching. Really, I'll probably always be searching for this. How can I help serve you guys better? How can I help my own self? How can I help my kids, right? One of my big things, and even one of the little slogans behind Dietitian Side Hustle is live your dreams, change the world. And I truly believe it when I say that each and every one of you has a dream in your heart, an idea in your head. And if we could just get it out into the world will be radically changed by it. But how do we get it out into the world? And how do we make your dreams a reality? And I really think that positive intelligence is onto some really cool things, and understanding the difference between people who have success and people who really, in a nutshell, get in their own way. So when I heard about this concept of positive intelligence, of course, I was all obsessed. And then I learned it was a book. So I immediately ordered it on Amazon. I think it was there before I even got back from Florida. It was at my house. I read the book and I was like, this is so good. So I ended up Googling positive intelligence. I ended up Googling Shirzad, and I was pretty much like, how can I give this guy my money? What else does he offer? Because I need more than just this book. And he happened to be offering I don't know how long it was, but he was doing a positive intelligence program for coaches. And I'm like, I'm a coach. Okay, I'm in. So it was like a grant program. I applied for the grant, got the grant, and then spent the summer of this year doing this positive intelligence program live. And so it was really cool. There's this app, and there's modules every week, and there's live group calls, and we had these pods, and a pod was just a group of people who you worked with together. So I actually had a few other dietitians that I pulled in with me on this little journey of doing positive intelligence this summer. Then at the end of the program, Shirzad presented an offer, which I love being sold to by good entrepreneurs. It was a great offer. And of course, I took him up on it. It was like pretty much year-long access into his program in being a coach for positive intelligence. So I did join that. I will say I haven't done a ton with it just because life kind of started lifing again. But I still have access for a year, and it's something that I want to continue to bring to more of you guys because, again, good stuff. So that's kind of my background. Is I kind of stumbled upon the world of positive intelligence, read the book, researched it online, took the program, and then I'm still in the program and I'm still very, very obsessed with it. And I actually have a little notebook if anyone's watching this on YouTube. I know most of you listen to the podcast on your podcast platforms, but some of you might watch this on YouTube. But you'll see me reading throughout this podcast episode because I actually have a little notebook that as I've been going through this course, I've been taking tons of notes. And so that's where a lot of what I'm going to be talking to you guys about is some notes from the beginning of the stuff that I learned. And I'll talk to you guys about how you can learn more about positive intelligence. But that's the backstory. And let's dive into what positive intelligence is. Again, Positive Intelligence is a book. You can find it at my Amazon storefront at katiedodd.com. If you go to katiedodd.com, you'll see a button that says Amazon storefront. Click on that and you'll see my my page, my curation for books for entrepreneurs. And all the books I talk about are there. And you can buy it right there through Amazon. So coming straight from the book, what is positive intelligence? Positive intelligence is a measure of the relative strength of your sage. Think of this as the best friend of your mind, to your saboteurs. Think of that as the enemy to your minds. So I'm gonna read that again, and then I'm gonna kind of explain it a little bit easier because I know like it's different when you're listening to me talk versus like reading a book with diagrams. But positive intelligence is a measure of the relative strength of your sage to your saboteurs. And so your sage is like the best friend of your mind. It's that voice in your head that says positive, good things. The saboteurs is that voice in your head that says mean things that just aren't true. Okay. We all have like these little voices in our head that tell us, okay, I can do this. I've got this. Or who do I think I am? Often on the podcast, I talk about limiting beliefs, and limiting beliefs are our saboteurs jumping in, telling us you can't possibly do that. And they get in the way of us having success. But then on the other side, you also have this positive voice that tells you, you know what? You can do this. Katie says you can do it. I see other people doing it. I know if I never give up, I'm going to do this. So let's talk about what high positive intelligence is and what low positive intelligence is, because positive intelligence is a measure, right? So high positive intelligence means that your mind is acting more like a friend than an enemy. At any given time, we all have these voices, right? This I've got this, the who do I think I am, right? Sometimes the voices are louder or quieter than others, but if you have high positive intelligence, it means that your mind is acting more like a friend than an enemy. It is building you up. It is strengthening you. It's what they call the sage powers in this book versus, tearing you down. If you have low positive intelligence, this means that your mind is acting more like an enemy than a friend. It is telling you, who do you think you are? It's getting in the way of your success, and it is not being very nice to you. So positive intelligence is essentially an indicator of the control you have over your own mind and how well your mind acts in your best interests. Interesting, right? So in the positive intelligence world, they talk about something called PQ. PQ stands for Positive Intelligent Quotient. And PQ is a score because, again, positive intelligence, it is a measurement. So PQ is an actual score from 0 to 100, and it's shown in percentage. And this is the percentage of time that your mind is acting as a friend versus an enemy. The percentage of your time that your brain is saying more positive stuff versus the percentage of the time that your brain is saying more negative stuff. And there are assessments out there that you can take through this program and through their website, and you can actually figure out what your PQ score is on a scale of 0 to 100, and the ideal score is greater than 75. Now, I will tell you that before I took the positive intelligence program, my PQ score was I think in the 60s. I'm sure I can go pull it up somewhere, but it was low. And I'm like, but I'm so positive. But that's not it. That's not what positive intelligence is. It's not just being positive. It's more like that deeper internal thought process that we have, right? So throughout this whole program, it's not just identifying like, oh, your brain's being pretty mean to you, or oh, your brain's being nice. The goal is to get your PQ score to 75 or above, and they do that by 3 strategies. There's 3 strategies to strengthen your PQ. Strategy number 1 is you have to weaken those saboteurs. So those mean voices that we all have, and I'll talk about those in a second because we all have a different mean voice. And actually, this is the part I thought that was the most cool about positive intelligence is I often talk about that mean voice in our head, but we all have a different voice and it hits us from a different angle based on lots of different things. But the first thing is to weaken those saboteurs, and it really is simple. It's almost oversimplified. I'll talk more about saboteurs on next week's episode, but it's observing and labeling the saboteurs, becoming more aware of them. Step number 2 is strengthening your sage. Again, that positive part of your brain, that best friend part of your brain that's saying, kind things. And number 3 is to strengthen your PQ brain muscles. So the 3 strategies to increase your PQ score is to weaken your saboteurs, strengthen your sage, and strengthen your PQ brain muscles. So let's talk a little bit about the saboteurs, because again, that's the mean voice that we all have in our head. So in this program, there are 9 different saboteurs and a judge. So the judge is something that we all have. The judge, they call it the master saboteur, and everyone has it. And it compels you to find faults in you, others, situations, and circumstances. I actually like this stuff because it's more broad, I think, than what it's like a broader view than what I typically look at. I'm more thinking of like, oh, the faults we see in ourselves. But well, what about the faults we see in other people? What about the faults we see in the situation that we're in? Oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening again. I can't believe I'm in this situation again. What about our circumstances? Like, gosh, this always happens to me. This is so unfair, right? So everyone has a judge, and the judge is the master saboteur, and then there are these accomplice saboteurs. So there are 9 different accomplice saboteurs, and I'm just going to I'll list them, and then I'll list them with descriptions. And as I'm listing them, I want you to start thinking of like, which one am I? I mean, there's assessments you can figure out what saboteurs are strongest in you. When I've done this assessment myself, I wish I had the score. I don't think I have the scores on me right now. I think I have screenshots in my phone because they're digital. But it's interesting because we all have different parts of these judges, or not judges, the saboteurs, but just in different levels. So for me, I think like, was it victim or controller? They were very, very low, but there were ones that were very, very high. Yeah. I'm flipping through my notebook and I don't have my numbers. That's okay. If I remember, maybe I'll share them when I do my next couple of episodes. So the 9 saboteurs that accompany the judge that we all have include the avoider, the controller, the hyperachiever, the hyperrational, the hypervigilant, the pleaser, restless, stickler, and victim. So I'll go through each one. The avoider. This is the person who avoids difficult and unpleasant or unpleasant situations or feelings or emotions. They avoid conflict at all cost. This often leads to procrastination because they don't want to deal with hard things, and also conflict avoidance. So the avoider is someone who is like, that's uncomfortable. Ooh, that's too difficult. I'm just not going to deal with that. I'm going to put it off. I'm going to avoid it. The controller. The controller has a need to take charge, to control situations, to bend people's actions to their own will. That sounds mean, but remembering that within all of us, I do believe that, almost every human is a good human, right? We all have good intentions, but this is that unintentional voice in our head that's like, no, no, no. You got to control everything. No one can do it as good as you. You got to be in charge. You got to make sure that people do things the right way. That's the controller. And there's parts of every saboteur that we're like, ooh, that's so yucky. I don't want to be like that. It's okay. It's okay. There's a judge that's trying to judge you about it, but there really is no judgment, especially if you want to like learn from these things and continue to grow and get better. So the hyperachiever is dependent on constant performance and achievement for self-respect and self-validation. So constant performance and achievement. I have to achieve, I have to act. My worth and my well-being is based on how well I achieve and how well I do things. Hyper-rational is an intense focus on rational processing of everything, including relationships. Breaking things down, very rational. This is how things are. I don't understand why you're getting all emotional. This is the way things are. Hyper-rational. Hypervigilant is intense and continuous anxiety about danger surrounding you and what could go wrong. Oh, I don't want to do this. Oh, I'm just waiting for the shoe to drop. I'm, just this constant hyper-vigilant state. The pleaser, also known as the perfectionist, is the person who, so the pleaser compels you to try to gain acceptance and affection by helping, pleasing, rescuing, and flattering others. You want people to like you. So you're just going to help. You're going to do things that please them. You are going to flatter. You are going to, actually, no, I'm sorry. The pleaser is not the perfectionist. That's my brain skipped to the next one. Sorry. So the pleaser is just someone who, it's a people pleaser. That's what a pleaser is. The next one is stickler. Stickler is the perfectionist. So a stickler is the need for perfection, order, and organization taken too far. And I think that's the thing with all these, it's just taken too far, right? So everything's got to be perfect. Everything's got to be in the right order. Everything's got to be just so. Next, we have restless, and this is constantly in search of greater excitement in the next activity or through perpetual busyness. This could also look like the person who's constantly side hustle hopping. Like you're doing something, you're like, well, getting a little restless, I'm going to go do this. Getting a little restless, I'm going to go do this. And then the final one is the victim. And this is the one feels emotional and temperamental as a way to gain attention or affection. So those are the 9 saboteurs: the avoider, the controller, the hyperachiever, hyperrational, hypervigilant, pleaser, stickler, restless, and victim. I will say within dietitians, I do see a lot of sticklers. I see a lot of hyperachievers. And honestly, dietitians, we could be a mix of all of these things. In addition to going through this program with a group of dietitians, I actually did these assessments with the Blog Boss Mastermind the last time we got together. And it was really interesting to see the ways that we were similar, but also the ways that we were different. And in general, most of our saboteurs do stay the same. A lot of these were formed in childhood, and there's all kinds of I guess one thing I should back up and say there's actual research and science behind positive intelligence. But a lot of this like formed in childhood, and there's a lot of reasons. And when you really dig deep into the saboteurs, as you start reading them, you're like, oh, this is so yucky. I don't want to be like that. And it's again, it's not something to be judgmental of you. It's something to be aware of, like, oh man, things in life led me to become this way. And this is something that's getting in the way of me having success. So even though I don't have all my numbers pulled up, I can tell you my top few saboteurs that I have. One of them is the pleaser. I am absolutely a people pleaser. I want you guys to like me. If you give me a bad review or you say something mean online about me, I mean, I think that's everyone, right? We'll be like, but I mean, that is something that I've struggled with over the years, and it's really gotten me in trouble, where I just want people to like me. And where it's really got me in trouble is where it's more like how it's impacted me, right? I need to put myself a little higher on the totem pole. I am also an avoider. And this kind of ties together, right? I want people to like me, but I want to avoid things that are uncomfortable. And for me, I like to do hard things. So it's not necessarily difficult, but it's more like conflict, right? Okay, I'm just going to avoid. I'm just not going to do this. I'm just not going to deal with this. And then I go back and forth. Stickler is pretty high for me, but then also hyper vigilant is actually one that, if I look at my top 3, the last time I did this assessment, it was the pleaser, the avoider, and hypervigilant. But before that, it was stickler. So stickler and hypervigilant tend to fight for 3rd place for me. So that's a little bit of my saboteurs. But in a nutshell, these saboteurs, they're all different. We all have different saboteurs, different things that show up in us, and it's that voice in our head that says like, oh no, just let's put that off. Let's just not deal with that. Or like, I have to always achieve, or everything has to be perfect, or I have to always move on to the next thing, or that victim mentality of like, oh my gosh, bad things always happen to me. Like, these are those voices that we have, and they're all different, that can get in the way of us having success in business, in life, in relationships, in all the things. And I'm going to kind of start wrapping this up because, again, we're going to have a couple other episodes as I'm talking about this. But really, my goal of this episode is like high level. I want you guys to know what positive intelligence is, but I also want you guys to know why I'm so obsessed with it. I might be butchering the way I say it. It's in my notes, but I'm not going to flip through it. But one of the cool things they talked about with positive intelligence is think of your phone. our phones have operating systems. Within the operating systems, we have apps. So we might use an app to check our email. We might use an app for sleep. We might use an app for the calendar. We might use an app for a game, for social media, whatever, right? We have all these apps. And the operating system, what happens if you don't update your phone? Usually right away, nothing, right? You get those annoying pop-ups. But if you go too long and you don't update that operating system, the apps won't work. Eventually you'll hit a point where they just don't work because the operating system can't handle the apps that you currently have. So when they talk about positive intelligence, they talk about how you are working on upgrading your operating system. And maybe you're focused on one thing with positive intelligence. Maybe you're focused on, I just want to get better at business. I want to make sure that I identify my saboteurs, weaken them, identify, things that can strengthen my sage muscles, make sure my brain is being more of a friend than an enemy to me. And I want this so that way I can finally have success with my business. We're focused on one thing. But as we're focused on that, and as we are working on positive intelligence, it's improving the whole operating system, which is going to affect all the apps. And this is also another reason why I love positive intelligence, because as I've learned more about this stuff, as I've really gotten deep into it, it has helped me with my own personal growth. It's helped me as a mom. It's helped me as a friend. It's upgraded the whole operating system, right? and I love anything that can help us in multiple areas of life. And again, positive intelligence, it's something that I discovered, a course I took. It's practices that I do on a regular basis, and I'll be talking more about that in the next couple of episodes. But anyways, I hope this was interesting to you guys, this whole concept of how our brain is saying both positive things and negative things, and often we just go through life completely unaware. And then we get really frustrated when we feel like, man, I started a side hustle again and it just didn't work out. Things just didn't work out. I quit. It didn't work. What is wrong with me? It's nothing wrong with you. It's just about trying to figure out what is getting in your way. Once we can identify it, then there's real things that we can do to fix it, to make sure the next time you do have success. So, Positive Intelligence, great book, highly recommend it. If you go to katiedodd.com, you can find my Amazon storefront and go buy that book. I definitely recommend reading it, and that might be something fun to start reading now as we go through the next couple of episodes together with this series on positive intelligence. Now, one thing I was thinking as I was pulling together this episode, one thing that eventually I'm probably going to be offering is some one-on-one saboteur discovery sessions. That is something that I learned how to do through this program that I'm doing. I don't have any of the details on it, but if anyone wants to learn more, if they're like, Katie, I want to learn more about this through you, reach out, let me know. And for sure, everyone tune in for the next 2 episodes. In the next one, we're going to talk more about the saboteurs. And then in part 3, we're going to talk more about the sage. So thank you so much for listening to this episode. And if you want to learn more about the ways we could work together, go to katiedodd.com. And I will see you guys next week on the podcast. Bye, guys.